All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live stream of the Aging Together podcast, Season 4, sponsored by Heart Mobility, revolutionizing those steel metal gray grab bars from the 1960s with their newest product, Safety Grab. If you're tuning in live, please use the chat to introduce yourselves and ask any questions you have along the way. Our guest today will answer them at the end of the show, depending on how much time we have. Today's guest is Dawn Marie Johnson. Dawn brings over 20 years of experience in the senior living industry, including roles in dementia training, sales leadership, and mentoring. Prior to her role as Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Wingate Living, she served as a Regional Sales and Marketing Director, Senior Sales Director, and Area Director of Community Relations. Dawn is driven by her desire to coach, mentor, and lead her teams with a compassionate approach. Her background, experience, and double major in marketing and sociology from Southern Connecticut University help her work closely with to understand the needs of families searching for senior living options. Dawn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. It's nice to meet you
Abs-
and all your guests.
Absolutely. Let's start with a little bit about yourself. What's your story and your journey into the industry? What sparked your passion for this work? And how has that why sort of evolved over time?
I started about 20 plus years ago. I started as a program director in an assisted living that was focused on memory care, one of its kind at that time, because memory care assisted living has not been around for so long. And I was fresh out of college, didn't really know, what I wanted to do. I fell upon this position, and to my surprise, I fell in love with it immediately. I fell in love with the residents. I fell in love with the families. I learned that senior living was not just about care, but it was also about joy, residents having dignity and fun and purposeful living. And then I think my why deepened a little bit more when I, on a different perspective, moved my uncle into a senior living. And I realized how difficult that process was and stressful. So my why became a little bit more of a passion, to help families navigate the whole move-in process, and make sure that they felt supported and that they're not alone, to make sure that every resident that moves in, is set up for success and starts on such a positive journey. I think.
That's awesome. I feel like a lot of people, generally, if you work in this industry, it's due to a personal experience
Mhm.
because you have to navigate it and then you see a need for something and you're like, I'm going to fix that.
It's so true. And just the stories, that I have throughout my journey in this industry, going back 20 years. I mean, to this day, I have a little Christmas ornament that I put on my tree that was a resident that was special to me. I have, just other tokens along the way, and the stories and the interaction and the experiences that I've had with so many seniors, throughout my career, have just been so rewarding. And I'm very lucky and blessed and fortunate to be in this industry.
Yeah, that's great. Talk to us about supportive living options, both at home and in the communities.
I mean, a senior can have support in their home. They can have outside care coming in, or they can choose to live in a community. The nice thing about living in a community is that it does help, with that isolation, and provides socialization. And when they're in a community, there are different levels of care that they can take advantage of, which brings peace of mind to families because they don't have to always worry about what's next. When my mom is starting to have cognition issues, what am I going to do then? They can actually stay in the comfort of their home with people that they're familiar with our amazing staff, and age in place. and not have to worry about ever making that move and just staying where they are. So at Wingate, we have independent living, we offer assisted living and memory care. And so often a resident may start in independent living, but a few years down the road, maybe they need more supportive services so they can have assistants come into their apartment, or if they need a secure environment, they can move to our memory care program, which looks the same, feels the same, it's still the same staff. So there's just much more peace of mind, socialization, and residents can just thrive in a community versus being at home and making sure that they're getting all those aspects.
You mentioned a term that is very familiar to me as an occupational therapist, age in place.
Mm-hmm.
So, aging in place is a buzzword phrase that's very common nowadays, but it's been around for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that truly mean to you, and how can supportive living communities create that environment where residents feel like they're at home and still have their needs met?
Yeah, I think aging in place means continuity and confidence, and knowing their needs can be met without losing their sense of home and belonging. For some families, that means staying at home, but for others, finding a community where it's an environment that supports their level of care, or if they have a cognition change, that they can stay in that same environment and still not have to move again, have peace of mind, um, and you don't have to worry about what happens next. Families have that peace of mind that they can just add those services to whatever they need when they're in a community.
Yeah. I think there's so many options, right? When you're looking at communities and other
Mm.
ways of aging in place. And so, when there's so many options available, how does an individual or a family determine, what should they be looking for? What amenities are meaningful to them, or what aligns with their lifestyle and values? How do families actually find the just right fit for them?
Yeah, I think every family defines comfort as something different. And it's really figuring out and sitting down with your loved one what's important to them. Is it wellness? Is it, dining? Is it activities? Is it entertainment, music, travel? What's important to them? And then making a list and using that list as a guide to allow you to ask when you tour communities thoughtful questions. What is the culture like here? What is the dining program like? Are people connected? What kind of friendships do they have? Are you going out in the community and participating, in local events? What does that look like? So really defining what's important to your loved one and then trying to align it with a community that feels right as you're touring all different communities.
When you say touring different communities, like in your experience, when should people start doing that?
I would say it's nice to start early and so important. I mean, a move is big and it's not easy. Even at my age, making a move, it's a lot. So I always say to families, start that whole process and conversation early because it's so nice when we have a resident that moves in that is feeling good so that they can enjoy all the amenities that the communities offer versus waiting until someone is not feeling well and then put a move on top of that can be very taxing on a resident. So starting small, choosing a few communities to tour and just start having that conversation. Like I said, what's important to you? What are you looking for when you tour a community? Is it wellness? Is it a quiet community, a smaller community? Would you thrive better in a large community? All of those things, and having that conversation early on, um, will just help you with your path forward, finding the right fit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I always say the earlier the better,
Mhm.
instead of waiting for when you need that assistance, because then a lot of times you start looking, and a lot of facilities have, or communities have waiting lists, especially if they're booked. And so if you don't have a list in mind, you can't really approach them if you've never toured them,
You're
to be like,
100% right.
hey, I
Mhm.
need you next week.
Yeah, it's so true, and you're 100% right. Like most of our communities right now are full, and so, like I said, if you're feeling good and you can wait, then you should wait for the right community. But if you're not, and if it's more of a crisis situation, then the options sometimes, and never mind when you're in crisis, and now you're trying to figure out what community is the best fit. Whereas if you had planned that ahead of time and you know, it would just make the whole process a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if you've seen this in your practice, but there when a lot of individuals are touring for independent living facilities, they generally tend to treat it like they're buying a house, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, okay, where are we going to move to? We're buying a new place. But it's just going to be in a nice community. Oftentimes, they're like 55 plus active communities that have CCRC options or whatever it might be. But then when you're looking for assisted living or memory care placements, it's more so the family saying, hey, we need you somewhere where we can get you help. How important do you feel family involvement is at maybe each of those stages, right? Because, yes, while independent living is truly independent for the family, we also want to make sure that the other options are there. And so, talk to me a little bit about what you think the role of the family caregiver or the family at large is.
Families are so important. They communicate the most about their loved one. And when the community and the family are both talking about the loved one and planning, it's a circle of care. And it just sets the senior up, for success. The more communication, the better, especially if a community has that, before they even move in. It just makes everyone more successful. And families are so important in all of our communities. Our executive directors have an open door policy. We have events that families are welcome to come and attend and participate with their loved one. We welcome grandchildren. On a Sunday, there's nothing better walking into a community and hearing the laughter of children, or there may be our cornhole board in the backyard with grandchildren playing with their grandparents, or a few of our communities have pools, swimming together. So we love families, especially when they're involved with their loved ones, communicating, involved, and just part of the journey, with their loved one. And it's nice to see when families feel peace of mind, when their loved one is being cared for. Now it becomes a little bit more of social interaction versus always worrying about, oh, when's the next doctor's appointment? What are we going to do? What's next? It just
Yeah.
becomes a much more positive interaction, and families can get back to feeling that connection with each other again.
Yeah. I think you alluded to this, and might be sort of a follow up to the next question. But when you think about supporting these aging adults and their family caregivers today, what do you see as the single most overlooked need? And that could be both at home and in the communities, or how they differ or how they're similar.
Yeah, I think it's isolation, honestly. I think when seniors are at home and they don't have that much support, I mean, isolation can take such a toll on someone's health, cognition, purpose. So it's really about improving that. And that's why when they move into a community and when they start to have that social connection, everything just, improves from there. Residents thrive. They tend to blossom, come out of their shells, and that can make such a difference, on someone's health and just their well-being in general. So,
Yeah. We, as an OT, we do a lot of work or try to do a lot of work around educating elders about the risks of social isolation, right?
Mhm,
Even the World Health Organization is now putting loneliness as an epidemic and its
mhm.
impact on older adults. And so, as a follow up to that, beyond medical care, how can communities support holistic well-being? And you've alluded to this a little bit, but through things like food and fitness and mental health and social engagement.
Yeah, I think beyond medical care, holistic wellness is the heart of modern living. And communities are tapping so much more into mind and body and soul. At Wingate, we have a program called Live Well, and it focuses all on providing stimulating programs for the mind, making the body more strong, and that could mean yoga or exercise classes or a personal trainer. And spirit, just making that much more of a lively spirit so that people feel good. They feel like they are living with a sense of belonging and purpose. But we design all of our experiences and programs are designed to sharpen the mind, make the body strong, and keeping the spirit engaged. And when residents thrive in all those dimensions, their quality of life just soars.
Yeah,
It's so
absolutely.
important.
Yeah. A lot of new senior living or modern senior living is extremely tech enabled, and that could be a pro and a con for
Mhm.
elders right now. How or what questions should families ask when they're touring these communities regarding the use of technology and whether it is enhancing or replacing human connection, especially when we're talking about social interaction and engagement?
Yeah, technology can be such a powerful support, but it should never replace human connection. We have tapped into so many new technology tools. One that we use is called Safely You, which actually monitors falls. It's a great program because then we can adjust our care plan. We can look at patterns of a fall, figure out what time of day, what we can change. So that's great. Another program that we love for technology, it's called IN2L. It's never too late. And again, that's a very interactive program that our life engagement directors use. Um, it is an interactive program that taps into entertainers, travelogues, trivia. So, what that allows is our life engagement directors to spend more time on that connection with residents versus behind the scenes planning all those events. If they want to do like a theme day, an Italian day, it can all be set up for them. The technology will provide trivia, travel logs, cooking shows, all on like Italy or Italian food. And so that takes away that time from the life engagement director of planning all that, and they can spend their time more with the residents and have that connection. We also use another technology support called Cubico, which is an internal system that connects with residents and families. They can tap into seeing menus daily, the activities calendar. They can even communicate with each other. So there's so many new things. I'm sure there's so many that we don't even know about that are coming into play. But I think it's always
Yeah.
important to keep that in the background is that you want it to be a tool and not replace that human connection. And that's really important.
Yeah, yeah. And you may have to keep the human aspect of all of the one-on-one stuff, right? We can't
Hmm.
replace that sort of stuff with technology. I love the example you gave with the event and like theme planning. I think that's so cool because
Hmm.
yeah, it would take a potential provider or worker to spend
Right.
a good chunk of their day planning that all out. But if something can just set that up for them, then
Right.
the person can actually focus on getting the residents ready for it
So
or
true.
prepared or bringing them to the events or, whatever it might be.
Yep. Or
Now,
just being
some of
present.
these, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Now, some of these internal programs and stuff that you have, like a theme day or something, do family members get invited to that, or like do they take part in any of that stuff?
Yes, so we welcome families to come any time of day. We don't have certain visiting hours. They're welcome to come to any event. And that's the great thing about that program that I mentioned, Cubico, because residents not only can the residents see, the programs for the day, but the families can go on the app and look to see, okay, what's going on for the day. Oh, this looks like an interesting program, entertainment. I'm going to go. I'm going to actually sit with my mom and listen to this entertainer so they know what's going on. But in addition to that, we also, we have so many programs that are resident focused and family focused programs. It could be a family night. Maybe it's just like pizza and bingo or trivia or a concert in one of our beautiful courtyards that families and grandchildren can come to. We just passed Grandparents Week and Assisted Living Week, and we had in most of our communities amazing barbecues in our beautiful courtyard for Grandparents' Day for all of them to visit and encourage them to come in and visit with the residents. So yeah, it really is everything that we do is family focused and family driven, and we encourage that engagement with families and residents and staff.
Do you find that most families are involved and willing to come and show up and participate, or do you find that sometimes you have to do outreach to them to get them to come participate or visit?
It's probably a mix. I mean, nowadays, usually most adults in the home are working during the day. So it's a mix. We have families that volunteer, they'll call the bingo, they'll run the trivia groups. But that's why we try to have those separate events so that they can plan and put it on their calendar, to attend. But for the most part, we try, to just have that family culture and warmth in our communities so that families enjoy coming to our communities. They can take advantage of some of our bistros and help themselves to coffee, or maybe there's a pastry out. Sit down and have a warm cup of coffee with your loved one, and maybe it's just a visit and it's not so much an activity that happens on the weekends. But most of our communities are thriving on those weekends with families coming in to visit, taking their loved ones out too, because it doesn't necessarily need to be in a community. Some of our families, take our residents out, to lunch, to dinner, or maybe to a family party or a wedding. So that's very much a part of what we do and what families do as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great way to get family involved and make them feel like a part of the community as well,
Mhm.
and not just a place where mom lives,
Right.
right?
Not just a place where mom lives. Yes.
You've talked about this a little bit, but tell me a little bit more about your specific approach to care and community at Wingate and what makes it unique to you or to Wingate. And then, along with that, maybe share a moment, whether it's big or small, when you knew that your approach was actually working and making a real difference in the community. Um, just, any example
Yeah.
that you can think of.
Yeah. I think what makes Wingate very unique is our personalized services. Everything is personal to what the residents are, and it's really about finding out what their interests are and creating that personalized plan. Also, Wingate Living is family owned, so we try to bring that family warmth into all of our communities. We're very small, and so I think people feel that. I myself, I'm on the regional team. I don't have an office, so I'm out, in all these communities every single day. And when you talk about something that rings a bell, actually something that just happened was we had a community that took residents on a pontoon boat, and the executive director shared letters from families saying, I can't believe my mom moves into a senior living. And the next thing I know, she's out like on a lake on a pontoon boat. And how happy they were. One actually said that they cried because I think a lot of people think when you move into a senior living, you lose some of your independence, but that's so not the case. You regain that, and you start living life again. Like it's not about what you lose, it's about what you gain. Another amazing example is one of our communities in Needham welcomed Sunny Williams, the astronaut, to our community. I mean, that was such a big deal for our residents, for our families. I mean, we had staff that were crying to meet, an astronaut. How did we get this person? So it just really shows how vibrant and engaging communities can be and what a positive experience that the residents, get to live every single day by living in a community.
Yeah, that's somewhat related, but my grandma started attending like an adult day center a few years ago, many years ago now, almost a decade. But I always joke with her saying she has more fun than I do
Yeah.
because she's like going on these like cruises and these like group road trips and
Yes.
like all this stuff that, I don't know that she would have ever had the opportunity to
Right.
do all of that if she wasn't attending this adult day, right? And so,
Right.
and this is not even like they're not even residents of a community, right? This is just a community program that offers them
Yeah.
these types of opportunities. And so I can just imagine having some of those opportunities built into a living community,
Yes.
like a residential community. I feel like that's phenomenal that you're able to do that.
Yeah, and we often hear, families that say, I called my mom or dad and, they're busy. They don't even pick up their phone. And for us, that is the best kind of feedback, right? Like,
Yeah.
where is my mom? Well, she's out on the trip or she's busy, like participating in one of the programs. It's honestly like the best kind of feedback when we hear families saying, she's never in her apartment. She's always busy. She never answers her phone. You just know, like, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's where it's like, I'm actually not concerned that she's not picking up her phone. I
Yeah.
just know she's out doing something fun.
Yep. So true.
I So switching gears a little bit about care, from like a provider standpoint, right? From a working standpoint, care work and innovation both come with their own hurdles. What's a common challenge that you face, and how do you navigate that? And then also, maybe this is more for like the community employees that you have who work in the community. How do you help them navigate hurdles without them burning out?
Yeah, I think, since we are a small company, and I did talk about how I'm on a regional team and I don't have an office, I'm in the community. So I think our biggest thing is making sure that our teams feel supported, like you mentioned, and that they don't burn out. And just making sure that they have what they need. Caregiving is hard work and it can be emotional. And it's so important that people that take care of people also take care of themselves so that they can give, what they need to that person. Um, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of you first. And so we are all about mentorship and team support, team building, having events with our teams just to make sure that they feel supported. We encourage our teams, to take their time, take their vacation time, and take respite time for themselves. It's so important to us that our teams feel the best they can feel every day so that that can trickle down, to all of our residents in the community.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this a little earlier about how it's the same staff at all levels of care.
Hmm.
How does that work? And how do you, from an employment standpoint, ensure that the team that's working in independent living is also trained and capable of working in the memory care?
So I guess it depends on which community it would be because some of our communities are standalone. Like we have an independent living community that is standalone, and then we have an assisted living and memory care community. So that would be different. But we like to rotate staff so that that they don't so that they have that consistency, but also just so that they have that change. I think change is good for everyone, especially when it comes to caregiving. So all of our staff are trained in dementia training. They go through a 5-star training program, and they're all certified in dementia training as well, so that if they're working in assisted living one day, that they're also trained to work in our memory care as well. And then the residents, get to know all of our staff. It's not someone that was just pulled from the assisted living that goes into memory care and nobody really knows who that person is. They've already met that person. So it just works really well for that rotation. But independent living is different. However, even though they are standalone, we still have, family events together where they'll get to know some of the residents, or maybe some of our independent residents volunteer in assisted living. They run trivia programs or maybe a flower arranging. So I feel like it's still like a whole home approach. Our memory care residents at most of our communities will come to entertainment on the assisted living side. So that's another opportunity for them to get to know other residents and staff within the community. Even though they're in a memory care setting, doesn't mean that they don't participate, in assisted living programs. When we have entertainment, we like for everyone, to enjoy that. So that's why we use the whole home approach in most of our communities.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do I feel like I see, so I'm going to backtrack here a little bit. So, growing up, I saw these 55 plus, 65 plus communities, or like senior living homes and things like that. And they were really just truly like apartments. Then they moved into sort of these like community living models where I think we see most of our senior living or supportive living communities today, right? Where it's either they're standalone independent living facilities or retirement communities, active communities, or they are a mixed in, assisted and memory care unit together, or we have CCRCs where you have all three together in a big community. I feel like over the past couple of months, I've seen a big influx of more like resort style, like supportive living communities and environments. What do you think the future of supportive living communities looks like maybe in the next like 5 to 10 years? And what are the pros and cons to that?
So I think I'm actually really excited about it. I think the baby boomer generation is going to reshape everything. They're active, they're tech savvy, they want vibrant, personalized lifestyles. And this excites me because it's driving innovation. It's really changing the design. There's a lot more thought into the design of the communities, programming, technology. Families should look for communities that are adapting and embracing, AI and technology. So when you look at a community that was, built 20 years ago, it's so different. We're actually building a brand new independent living community in Needham, Mass called One Wingate East. And it just blows me away on how different, like the design and the programming. For instance, we'll have a golf simulator. We will have a yoga studio, a spin studio. We've never had a spin studio in a community before, so really excited about that. We'll have a pour my own wine little feature in our bar. So all these things, I think, is just preparing, or we're kind of there for the baby boomer generation, because their needs is so different. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see in 5 years, where we are with so many other new communities and this new influx of residents that are moving into our communities. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that. And, it's not even just baby boomers, right? Even some of the older Gen X,
Hmm.
they are living longer and healthier
Hmm.
comparatively to a lot of the baby boomer generation. And so they're looking for options for staying active and
So
engaging
true.
in sports or exercise or whatever. So I love that you're, building out that yoga studio and the spin class and or
Yeah.
studio and just all of that stuff. I do think it's extremely important to keep up with the market and keep up with what people are looking for and want. We're well past the days of where, communities don't even have a pool. Um,
Right.
and
Right.
I still find it mind boggling. Like, I just visited a brand new, I say brand new, it's about 5 years old, but like, they're still building and it's technically brand new. And I went to go check it out and there's no pool.
Mm.
There's no indoor or outdoor pool. There is no their community common like the activity house or the clubhouse is like the size of like someone's maybe two living rooms put together. And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
why are we still building stuff like this?
Right.
Like I don't think this is what we need anymore. We
Right.
need something better and more. But that comes at a cost, right? And so trying to balance how expensive development and labor costs are and
So
trying
true.
technology is and all of that and balancing that with affordability for people who really need communities like this. What do you think that looks like and what it will look like as these communities keep developing into more modern and living?
It is interesting and it is a challenge because it's definitely, more expensive these days to build communities. The cost to build has increased. And so I think developers are looking more at that and really developing in more areas that are a little bit that can sustain, those kinds of rents because you have to put that back into the rents to be able to afford that. So I think location is key of where you're seeing these new developments that have all of those new innovations and amenities and pools, which are very expensive. Um, I just think that will be, you know, changing and more an issue for developers versus, on my end. But um, I was just talking to someone about that the other day. So I think people are just being more cautious of where they're developing. And so, like our communities in Needham, our independent living is in Needham, and we're full. We're full, and it filled up pretty quickly because it's
Yeah,
a great
I
market.
Yeah. And that's where like, right, we're going to see all these facility communities with all the bells and whistles in
Mhm.
affluent neighborhoods and
Mhm.
communities, right? And that's sort of where I come from is, we're losing hundreds and hundreds, thousands of nursing facilities every year that
Mhm.
insurance pays for. We're losing access to um, good or enough home care. We're losing access to a lot of these services that the non-affluent neighborhoods need.
Mhm.
And so I'm a big proponent of having affordable communities available to those neighborhoods,
Yes.
but and understanding that development costs are exponential right now.
Right.
And so I don't know, maybe like tapping into your 20-year industry of experience and like maybe a little bit of business development, but like, what do you think some options could be in that, right? Where maybe it's communities without all the bells and whistles and they just get a low tier option, right? But
Right. Yeah. And
what's like still necessary to have even in a low tier community?
yeah, I think if it's assisted living, I think, the care is first and foremost the most important, the care model. But, there are different ways now to afford senior living communities. Now there's entrance fee, which is which is much different, where you put a larger deposit down, but then you receive a portion back when you move out, and then the rent's are lower. So sometimes that's a little bit more of an affordable option for seniors versus strictly just a monthly rent. Um, and then there's also, the buy-ins where people buy the unit. And so they sell their homes and they buy the unit. They also have, again, a little bit of a lower monthly fee. And then they can sell the unit or use that if they transition along the campus. If there's memory care or skilled nursing care, sometimes that's an option too. But I think, the people, the care are really what make our communities thrive, and the socialization. So I think if people have that, I think any community can be successful. For someone that is at home and doesn't have like a whole lot of socialization or interaction, they can still have that. And like you said, it is all bells and whistles, and it's not necessary in every single community. It's not always the right fit for everyone. Sometimes there are other things that are more important to someone. So again, it's going back to what really is important to that person when they're looking for a community, and weighing all that out and putting it down on paper and bringing that with you as a guide to your community and using that as your roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Really coming down to the root cause of why somebody would be pursuing a supportive living community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they need help with something,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's socialization, whether that's personal care needs, whether that's meals, whether that's truly hands-on care that they need, or safety. And so if those basic needs can be met
Right.
at a reasonable cost, then it makes it worthwhile for that person. And so I think that's a really important point to drive home, and just have people understand that you don't need the community with all the bells and whistles.
Right.
They're great to have if you can afford it,
Mm-hmm.
but what you really need is a good care team and a good community environment.
Absolutely. That's always first and foremost important.
Yeah.
Things should be.
When we were Yeah, it should be.
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking earlier about, starting to tour communities and things like that, I hear a lot from clients and audience members on feeling stuck at, I don't know where to start. Like, it's so
Yeah.
overwhelming because there's
Mm-hmm.
so many options. There's so many people telling them different things. There's so much information available online. They might not necessarily know what they're looking for. And so then they get fed all of these different options. And now they're like, well, I just don't know where to start. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
What's the first step that you recommend that they can start today or tomorrow or
I think
next week?
I think it's just having that conversation. Like what is working well at home? What's not working well? What would you like to see? What's important to you? Starting just that conversation, and starting small. Choose 3 communities to tour. Meet the community relations director and bring that list of things that are important to your loved one with you. And like I said, use that as your roadmap, because it can be overwhelming. Some families, they tour 7 to 10 places, and then it just becomes a little bit more overwhelming because you start forgetting which community was which. So start small. Start with just that 3. I can't tell you how often, a family member will tour our community or another community, and they've toured 2 or 3 previous to that, and then before they leave, they just say, you know what, this is it. It's the feeling that I got that this just seems like the right fit. And they know it right away. Every community has its own personality, its own culture, its own programs. And it's really just finding that fit. And I do think it is a feeling that you get when you talk to the staff, you ask thoughtful questions. What is the culture like here? What are the activities like? What's dining? What is the dining like here? What friendships are made? What are some things that you do outside of the community? Asking those thoughtful questions meeting the staff. I think most families, it just clicks.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they know, like, this is it. This is the one. So,
Yeah. It's kind of like what I said earlier of like, it's like buying a house, right? When you
right.
go to a bunch of open houses and look at a bunch of different homes, and then you just know when you find the right
You just
one.
know. Hmm. So
Yeah.
true. But don't like look to schedule 7 to 10. Like I said, just pick your three. Start with that. And if you want to see more after that, then, definitely schedule that. But I would just start small.
Yeah. I like the 3. I usually set people up with 5,
Hmm.
depending on what their choices are. But it also, I think, depends on the region and the neighborhood, like you were saying earlier. Some geographic areas tend to have a ton of them, and then
Yeah.
some geographics have very few options. And so if there's not a lot of options, I'm going to give them as many as I possibly can. But if
Right.
there's like one on every corner, I'm like, okay, here's 3 that meet your needs, right?
Right.
I think that's extremely valid.
Yes. And important. Hmm.
Yeah. I always like to leave the audience with a practical tool, whether it's a resource, a tech tip, or a mindset shift. What is one that you wish every caregiver or aging services professional knew about?
I think it's just, the unknown can be scary and intimidating. And so I want people to know that moving into a senior living community is not about losing your independence, losing your sense of belonging. It's actually about starting a new journey, and regaining, some of those things. And that senior living can be, purposeful. It can give seniors a sense of purpose again, joy, dignity, all those positive things. Because I know, it can be scary and people hear things and maybe they don't have, the best experience with someone, that they know. But give it a chance. Come see what it's all about and just see how your loved one's quality life can really be enhanced and live with purpose every day. I think it's that positivity.
Yeah, I think that's great. In current climate of supportive living communities and just kind of how the elder care space is at large, if you could wave a magic policy wand related to elder care and supportive living communities, what systemic change would most improve the quality of life for these aging adults and those who care for them?
Yeah, I think in general it would be great to have more accessibility to senior living for everyone, and if there is some kind of policy that could help with that. But also just integration with technology, that's being encouraged more because I think the more that we are able to integrate with technology, it frees up some of our staff, it takes the burden off a little bit, and gets them back out interacting and engaging with our residents. So, more policies on integration, innovation, um, and just more ways that seniors have access to senior living.
Yeah, I do think that that would be a great policy for
Hmm.
everybody.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the future, but looking ahead, like 5 years from now, what emerging trend excites you the most, and how can our listeners prepare to leverage it?
Yeah, I think it's the baby boomer generation that excites me the most because I think it forces us to be more innovative and really look at those trends and what's important. But also integrating, with more technology. I mean, we have now safety technology. Is there more that's being created down the road that can make our residents more safe and provide more communication to our staff so that we can make adjustments when necessary? Um, so I think, tapping in marketing, I mean, I'm in marketing and AI with marketing. I mean, the sky is the limit right now. There's so much that I'm just starting to learn about that I'm just blown away with, honestly, talking about that since that's what I do. But there's just so much more to come out about that. So I'm really excited, and we're just starting to use, um, some of those resources. So I would definitely say, technology, the design of communities is changing so much, and I think in 5 years, with all the new communities going up, it will just be amazing to see on listening to the needs of our seniors, and what's important to them. You know, making sure that that's also involved in the design and the programming of communities is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited about the availability of more communities that are accessible and affordable. I do think that in the next 5 years, we're going to have a lot more of them, mainly because of the current state of elder care and the increasing need of resources and support for family caregivers. And
Right.
so I'm excited to hopefully see more of that over the next few years as well.
Yeah, and especially memory care, because memory care is so
Hmm.
evolving, and
Hmm.
what's to come with that, and the different stages in memory care and more standalone memory care communities, all of that as well.
Yeah. As a caveat to that, I'm sure you've heard about like the dementia communities, right? Like, what do you think about that and with supportive living?
It's amazing. So we actually, in Providence, we have a one of a kind in that area, early stage memory care. So we have early stage memory care and then regular memory care. And so that has been an amazing experience to see, because it really just shows that not all dementia is the same. And so when someone in the early stages gets to live in a community that is early stage dementia care, it's just so different. They have activities that are more on their level of cognition, they're with people more like them, and it just sets them up for more success. So that's been amazing to see, and I'm hoping we see more of that, where sometimes residents get lost in the shuffle if they live in assisted living and they have early stage memory care. Now this gives them the option to have a much more supportive environment, but still that independence, um, that they need, in an early stage memory care community. So it's exciting to see.
That's so interesting. Yeah,
Mm.
that is interesting because I feel like currently people don't pursue memory care until it's kind of too late almost.
Right.
And there's that difficult transition period from initial symptoms to diagnosis to the progression of the disease before it gets to a point where they can no longer live alone and
Right.
qualify for memory care, right? And not everybody qualifies for memory care either, right? Like, let's make that
Right.
clear too.
So
And
true.
so and so that's really neat that there's some sort of emerging option for
Hmm.
those earlier earlier stage
Yeah, and
cognitive decline too.
it's been so successful, and it just stays full. And like I said, those residents are sometimes lost in the shuffle in assisted living. So this gives them a much more
Hmm.
supportive environment and sets them up for success, and sometimes can even slow down the progression of the disease because they have a much more structured environment, which is also very helpful.
Right, the cognitive and social stimulation that they
Hmm.
wouldn't otherwise get, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. Before we
Yeah.
wrap up, what is one takeaway you hope every viewer walks away with after hearing about what you do today?
I think one takeaway is, if you are overwhelmed, like you mentioned, that this will inspire you, to start that process, and don't get so overwhelmed thinking about big picture and touring, 8 to 10 communities. Like I said, starting small. And I hope that you are able to start that conversation early so that your loved one can move in when they're feeling good, and really enjoy the benefits of senior living.
Awesome. Dawn, thank you again for being here with me today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. For those tuning in live, thank you for joining us. I'll be back with another live stream in 2 weeks, same time, same place. See you then.